So I am here to talk a little bit about TennCare health policy as it relates to Alzheimer's and dementia. So a couple of terms. We talk about long-term services and supports. So when we say long-term services and supports from a TennCare perspective, that can mean institutional care. That can also mean home and community-based services. So two separate pieces there. When we look at some statistics about those folks that we serve in TennCare related to dementia, we have about 18,000 TennCare members with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia. About 84% of those, all sorts of tricks, are over age 65, and about 15% are under age 65, between 45 and 64 years old. Right now, based on our current statistics, about 44% of those folks with Alzheimer's or dementia are in nursing facilities. So 36% are at home with a caregiver, and about 5% of those currently live home alone. The other 15% of those, for those of you who do math well, are in assisted living facilities or community residential placements, which are our home and community-based services options. Among those services that are utilized the most often by this population, personal care services, which is hands-on assistance with those activities of daily living, helping cook, clean, get dressed, do the ADLs, home-delivered meals, and respite care. And when we're saying respite care, we mean someone comes in, your primary caregiver, family member gets a little bit of a break, or that respite care can also be in an institution short-term. So to give you guys a bit of history about our long-term care system in Tennessee, we have made great strides over the past 20 years. We started out in 1999. We were 49th in the country in terms of the percentage of our expenditures that went to home and community-based services. We're very institution-heavy on our payments. We utilize nursing facilities for nearly every person who needed care. In 2008, the legislature passed the Long-Term Care Community Choices Act of 2008, and this provided funding for TennCare to work on diversifying how we served older adults and those with physical disabilities. The focus was reorganizing and improving coordination of care, refocusing and expanding those options for home and community-based care, and rebalancing, so serving more people outside of institutions, essentially finding ways to let them age in place. So today, back in '99, we had less than 1% of the population in HCBS. Today, our numbers look a lot better. We have got about, if I could see this slide, we've got about 46% in home and community-based services, and the rest of those in nursing facilities. Still a long way to go, right? We want to be more than 50% in home and community and even higher, but from where we were, it's a pretty big jump. So what are those home and community-based services? We have the Choices program, which is specifically for older adults or those with physical disabilities. There are 3 groups of eligibility or target populations in the Choices program. The first group are those who want nursing facility care. They have to meet the financial eligibility requirements and the specific medical requirements to be eligible for TennCare to pay for their stay in a nursing facility. Group 2 is identical financial and medical level of care, but they want to be in the community. And there is a determination they can be safely served in the community for same or lower cost than what TennCare would pay a nursing facility. Group 3 is a smaller benefits package. It is lower medical level of care requirements. And up until October 1st of this year, to be eligible in this group, a member would have to be on supplemental security income. So have to be very low income, low resources to qualify. I'm super excited to share that after October 1st, we're reopening Group 3. We got funding from the legislature to reopen Group 3 to folks who meet that medical level of care and don't receive SSI. So there will be 1,750 slots that open October 1st, and we're really hopeful that will improve our nursing facility diversion rate, which we have seen plummet since we had to close Group 3 to everybody except those with SSI in 2015. So really excited about that. All right, so let me talk a little bit about what eligibility for choices looks like. What does that medical level of care look like? So first of all, financially, financial standards for Medicaid are institutional Medicaid standards. So the person generally has to have income less than 3 times the federal benefit limit. And for 2021, I believe that is $2,382 per month. There are ways around this. You can send your patient to an elder law attorney and have them put their money in a qualifying income trust, or a Miller trust is what they used to be called, and they could still be eligible if their income is over that. And then they have to have assets under $2,000. That sounds like crazy talk, but lots of things are disregarded. For instance, house, there's a homestead exemption, so property and land around it is exempt, and I used to know this off the top of my head back when I did this for a living. I think it's upwards of $800,000, the value of the house that is disregarded and the land around it. It actually may be higher now. So as far as assets, there are also trusts that people can put assets in. There are different ways elder law attorneys can help clients move their assets into exempt funds so that they can retain some assets while also being eligible for institutional Medicaid. As far as the medical eligibility criteria, back in 2012, TennCare changed the medical eligibility criteria. It used to require 1 deficit 3 or more days a week in 1 activity of daily living. In 2012, we moved to an acuity scale, which will be in the slides, and it's really hard for me to talk through because it is this kind of crazy grid of how we score someone's ability to be mobile, to transfer, to feed themselves, to take their own medications, their ability to communicate, both receptive and expressive, as well as their orientation. And so the scores in this chart are not all consistent. So you can get, if you need assistance transferring 1 to 3 days a week, you would get 1 point. If you need assistance transferring 4 or more days a week, you get 3 points. So it doesn't go 1, 2, 3. It can go 1, 3, 4, or no points unless in communication, unless you completely cannot communicate. So that is the grid that we use for determining the medical eligibility. All of that criteria requires medical documentation. So this is where nurses, doctors, caseworkers, everyone can help, making sure medical documentation outlines what specific deficits the person has related to their diagnoses, right? We have tons of nurses on staff that review each and every one of these applications, and they have to have medical documentation to support that. So when our nurses look at the medical records and see, let me think of a good example, this person has asthma. Well, that doesn't really tell us anything. Does that affect anything as far as their ADLs? You know, so this is an area, if you know your patient is going to be applying for choices or needs long-term care, I would take that extra step, or recommend taking that extra step, and write out, how does this affect their activities of daily living? What do they say? Now, I will say we do send out questionnaires for people to fill out, and we have nurses that go over with them, you know, how does this affect you on a day-to-day basis? How often can you transfer on your own? How often do you need hands-on assistance from someone else? But it's really helpful to have that documentation to support it in the medical records when we're looking at those. Another way, if they don't meet the criteria that is outlined in our acuity scale, that chart, there is a way to request a safety determination. So basically there are multiple criteria available where if an individual, despite not meeting the level of care, criteria shows that they would not be able to be safely served with a smaller package of benefits and need the full package of benefits, then we look at safety situations around that. So some of those could be related to individuals who are living on their own and who have left their oven on and caused a fire, elope from their home and police are involved or even not involved. Certainly anytime police are involved with, for instance, real life situations, people running down the street naked. They have dementia. They, for whatever reason, have decided they are going to run down their street naked and police get involved. So those are things that don't hit like this is not, they don't have issues transferring, they don't have issues toileting, they don't have issues feeding themselves, but goodness gracious, there is a need for some intervention there. So safety determination request is another way for someone to be eligible for the Choices program if they don't meet the acuity scale. In your materials, there is a ton of information about safety determination requests. If people are seeking services in a nursing facility, we require, and it's not we, it's federal government requires a PreAdmission Screening and Resident Review. And this is a certification that the nursing facility is the most appropriate placement for this person, that they don't need specialized services related to mental health or intellectual disabilities or developmental disabilities. And so the goal is to make sure that we screen out those individuals from nursing facilities. And this goes back historically, some of you all, I'm sure, remember this, where people were just kind of warehoused in nursing facilities because we had nowhere else to serve them. And so this is trying to prevent that warehousing of individuals who have specific mental health needs or intellectual disabilities that should be more appropriately served somewhere else. So there are two components of the PASSR process. Dementia is an exception. So if you have a patient who has dementia, that doesn't mean they can't go to a nursing facility. We will bypass the PASSR process for those individuals if they have a primary diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia. The physician does have to certify that diagnosis, but obviously that is not something that specialized services are necessarily needed to treat in a nursing facility. So how do you help your patients? So we've talked about the paperwork, the medical documentation. If a person has TennCare, all they have to do is call their managed care organization, it's on the back of their insurance card, and say, I want to apply for the Choices program. If the person doesn't have TennCare, they can contact their local area agency on aging and disability, or the PreAD in their area. And they can also, when they contact the PreAD, they'll also get information about the Options program. Tricky words, right? Options and Choices. So Options is not a Medicaid program. It was around before the Choices program, and it has a lower package of benefits, doesn't require the same level of care or financial criteria as Medicaid does. And then there's also Older Americans Act programs that could be available if they contact the PreADs. All right.